All right. So
Uh,
before we get started, I did a little OSINT work myself, which is not very hard because there is a lot of stuff about you on the internet.
there is.
So you are a longtime digital forensics expert and entrepreneur. You're the founder and CEO of Paraben Corporation, a company focused on digital forensics tools and solutions for extracting and analyzing digital evidence from sources like mobile devices, computers, email systems, cloud storage, and IoT devices. You've also developed over 20 forensic software programs.
Yep.
You've patented a device for blocking wireless signals. You've authored several books and articles and taught numerous courses and workshops for the digital forensics community worldwide. You've also coined the concept of the 360-degree approach to digital forensics, as well as started the momentum and push for the forensics of everything, or FOE.
Yeah.
Incredibly impressive.
It's
So,
just cool sounding too, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I have to give another thank you to you for connecting me with all of your esteemed colleagues who I've already interviewed. We had such lovely conversations, and I feel like I have you to thank for that. So, yeah, it's been great. I have a lot of questions, so let's
Yeah.
jump in. First, I want to talk a little bit about your background and how you ended up where you are today. So, what drew you to this profession?
I wanted to be Wonder Woman.
Oh,
Like,
yeah?
I wanted to be Wonder Woman as a kid when they're like, what do you want to be when you grow up? My answer after watching Linda Carter was always, I want to be Wonder Woman. Like every paper, if you look back in my elementary school, it's a Wonder Woman. And as I got to be an adult, and you would laugh because there's actually piles of Wonder Woman and Wonder Woman over here. But I realized that what she really was, she was someone who was fighting for justice. And that's really what drew me into the investigative space. I was like, this is what I want to be. And this is the closest I could be because no one can actually be Wonder Woman. I had to find the next closest thing, which was fighting for justice through evidence. That's what brought me in. But I literally just live and die for wanting to be Wonder Woman.
So, can you take us through your career journey? So, like, how did you get where you are today?
So I actually started because I got an opportunity when I was 14, which I know you probably didn't expect it to start then. That one
Young.
of my advisors was starting their company and they were looking for workers to do manual stuff back in the day. I was duplicating floppy disks for their software product. I started doing that part time when I was 14, and I stayed and worked for that same company for 12 and a half years. I worked every job from production through up until I hit VP at the top of my title scale, launching different products, doing technology, doing investigative work. They did a lot of password recovery work. So I worked on those types of projects because I am neurodivergent. I'm dyslexic and I'm a lot OCD as well. I'm like functional though. Don't make me go by pictures that are crooked. I got to fix all of them. And it's, I got to tidy this and straighten up this. And then I can walk along merrily. I worked my way through. And after that time period, they actually let me go. They felt that I was not a good choice for their customer base because their customer didn't prefer to deal with a female versus a male. And they let me go. And so I started my own company and ramped it up to have my own digital investigative platform. And I love tech. Like, I am such a nerd. If I could live in Star Trek, I would. We might be going towards that one day. We'll see how it goes with the whole AI taking over the planet. That's possible. And so I stuck with tech. I'm completely self taught because of the dyslexia. It takes me so much longer to learn something. I never took a
Right.
computer class. I just figured it out. My family didn't
Wow.
pay for a fancy computer. So it was a lot of figuring it out on my own and building my own stuff out of parts because we just couldn't buy anything. So there we go.
Wow.
But
That's really impressive.
14 to now, which is a lot of time. I actually started the company in 1999 as a shareware company because that was a thing. And it was just making random, what I would have called apps now back in the,
Mhm.
and then in 2001, I did it as a hard turn and turned it into a digital forensic technology company because that's where my passion was. I can't be Wonder Woman making cool apps. So I flipped it and then have been pushing on it ever since. So technically, I think it's 27 years in business, but yeah, it's a long time.
Yeah. And in that time, you have accomplished a lot. I'm surprised to hear that you don't have any like formal training in that. Like you've built over 20 forensic software programs? Like, get out of town. What's
Yeah, it was I'm really good at doing things backwards, which really is what technology does in investigations. It's doing everything backwards. Architecting it and putting it all together clicks for my brain. I can design something new in like an hour and have it all specced out. I also work really fast, which is why I think I was meant to be a superhero, is that my speed I naturally do stuff on is so much faster than what other people do. It pisses off the people around me, but I am overly productive. That's probably my superhero power. I did do a formal education in culinary school while I was already working in the tech space. Just in case the AI takes over, people will still have to eat.
they'll still have to
So
eat?
I got a backup plan and I planned it early.
And you're gonna be designing the first replicator.
That would be very cool indeed. I do love to experiment with food. I do a lot of baking because my grandparents were pastry chefs. And so I grew up in a bakery.
It's amazing. So well-rounded.
There we go. We call it that.
So you have a unique perspective because you were basically got into the game as like a teenager. I'm very curious, what are the biggest shifts that you've seen in the industry and had to adapt to?
I think the biggest change that I've seen, obviously in the beginning, I was doing everything in DOS, just like everyone else was. So it was really that long. I remember the first big moment of shift is when I received my very first CompuServe disk and my AOL disk, because they used to mail those things out like they were
Yeah.
candy. And I had that moment because I had spent a portion of every day searching listservs using Pine, which is dating me terribly. And a lot of you Gen Zers are going to be like, what's that? And then CompuServe and AOL really put a GUI on it. And I remember that moment I actually felt like the internet became accessible and that
Hmm.
this is going to change the way we're looking at everything. Because the more accessible, the more crime that's going to happen, the more people that are going to use it. What we were looking at before, this little teeny space is now going to be huge. I remember the internet emerged moment, installing these GUI based tools and going, wow, that is so much easier because it's easier. Everyone is going to do it. That was my big first point. My next one was mobility. When
Mm.
I held my first Palm PDA, I said, this is where computing is going to go. It's not going to stay in clunky, really heavy machines because let's be serious, even the first laptops, that was a weighty proposition to carry around with you. And they could not sit in your lap because they would give you burns in your lap. It wasn't like it was mobile. So
Yeah.
having something that had computing power that literally felt in my hand, or fit in my hand, I was like, this is huge. And then the changes, we started adding smartphones. And it was funny, the first time I ever presented on smartphones or mobile devices, I actually got booed. Like someone actually said,
What?
"Boo," and I'm like, "What are we
Booing.
like, boo?" I felt like I was in a Monty Python or something, and I'm like, "Okay, what's happening?" And they said, "Look, all that data that is on that mobile device is gonna be on the desktop system. No one is gonna be carrying around what's important to them." And I'm like, well, "That sounds nuts. Of course they are." And I pushed for it, and it was a lot of education, but now I think in digital forensics and in digital investigations in general, I really think mobility and smartphones are the first thing you hit, not the last thing, not some random afterthought. They're the thing. And now I think my last shift is now. Holy crap, AI. I'm sure we'll talk about it because you can't not talk about it because it's right there. But
Yeah.
that is probably, in those huge jumps I just said, this is actually the largest technology shift I've seen in my career. Is
Wow.
over having an interface on the internet, my opinion.
I'm so curious. I need you to say more about that because I'm so curious. Like, what do you see in AI that is like more transformative than this like accessibility to the internet?
I believe AI is actually the accessibility to every piece of data. And it's not that exists, it's actually imagined. That's what makes it transformative. It's the fact that it actually has its own relational methodology of thinking of data. The internet allowed us to see data. Mobility allowed us to carry it in our pocket. but it didn't allow us to have that multiple level of understanding that AI does. I think that's where we're going to see more shifts. I can't wake up a day that it's like something hasn't changed. Or an AI company that was going is now gone. It was out for 4 days and then it's gone because it got gobbled up into another one. It is learning that fast, and that productive side of my personality finds it exciting because I'm like, oh, you're like the best buddy I've always wanted to talk to about what am I doing today or whatever it may be. So I guess I drank the Kool-Aid on AI in that aspect. It was great flavored. It was yummy. And, know,
You're
I
not the only one.
think I am the only one. Some people are more afraid of it than embracing it. It's just about data.
Especially with AI. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday and they were like, "Oh, I've tried out all the different tools and I've been using the LLMs that have come out since they became publicly
Yeah.
available, which has been about 2 years-ish, and I feel like a veteran."
When someone says, "Oh, I used ChatGPT for the first time," I'm like, "Wow, I've never used ChatGPT because I found so many things that were better than ChatGPT." It's kind of an interesting thing to look at. But if you think back, just to shrunk about all these things in history, if you think back to even like the first versions of Siri or your Alexas, those are all AIs too. They were very basic, more of a challenge response kind of system. But at the end of the day, they were some of the original emergence of consumer level AIs. We've had AI for ages, just now had that burst of we run like a badass now.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna change a lot or is already changed
Yes.
a lot, let's
Oh,
be
it is.
real. Yeah.
100%.
I'm curious though with these other shifts, like the internet becoming more accessible and the sort of shift to mobile. In your work, did you struggle with adaptation to these new things, or was it challenging, or were you just like into it right away?
I was into it right away. Let me grab this. Let me figure out the procedures. Anytime a new piece of tech comes out, my first inclination is how is this going to be forensic evidence, or how do I make the data I'm capturing at that forensic grade level, which I think is following all of us in digital investigations, whether you're a digital forensics, you're an OSINT, or you're doing digital investigations. I think you have to maintain some forensic grade, which means
Mhm.
it's repeatable, it's defensible, and it has a process. We do not perform any magic. It would be super cool because then we would totally have our own houses, we'd have our own robes, and it would be cooler than like Gryffindor and Slytherin and Ravenclaw. We'd have our own. But we do not have that. I've not shown up at a conference where someone is handing me a robe. This is what you are now. So that
Yeah.
is not happening. We're producing something that has a logic pattern and that we can show it. Anytime new tech comes out, whether it's mobile or PDAs, I had a different procedure for PDA devices than I do for smartphone devices. But I always start with a procedure and then I test my procedure and go through that scientific process, and then I come back and say, let's look at the data because then I know I'm going to get it right. I guess I'm a science nerd too.
I would say that's pretty accurate on the software side of things. It's funny, my partner did his degree in computer science, and we always joke. We're always like, "Well, I am somewhat of a scientist."
Yeah,
Like,
I will take that. I think
yeah,
anyone who does
yeah,
repeatable processes is a form of a scientist.
yeah, absolutely. Speaking of repeatable processes, when you begin a new case, what does the first phase of your investigation look like?
My first phase is what's my scope? What are all my data sources going to end up being in this investigation? I talk to a client because I do private sector side more than I do public sector side. I find out what their objective and goal is. And based on the pieces of data, what am I having an expectation of each one? So, kind of set an expectation of the data. And that way, everyone that's part of the investigation is starting from the same point. Because if you don't, they do think you're magic and they do think you can create, let me just make a dragon out of nothing. It's not going to happen. So I like to set expectations, look at my data sources. And then I typically start with OSINT and then I move to digital forensics. I think understanding what my open sources are about whatever I'm investigating is an important aspect because it might shift some of that expectation. Even if I have resident data devices, I still like to start with what is out there and accessible. I think it's the first step of your picture. It's like the outline.
Does this work into that concept that you coined, the 360-degree approach to digital forensics?
It
Can you
does.
break that down for me?
Yeah.
What that
So
means?
I've added OSINT into it as OSINT has had more expandability beyond the original military organizations that were doing that intelligence factor of it.
Mhm.
It's definitely become more mainstream. So, what that process is really taking you through the entire process of creating something that is admissible in that forensic grade aspect. So, it's the collection stage of it. What are you going to do in that collection stage? OSINT is part of that collection stage. Then you might go through different data sources like the digital forensic devices. Then you're going to do your analytics of these sources, put your timelines together, do your link analysis, find your answers there. Then it goes to reporting and your court level. But every one of those aspects is actually thought about through the entire time. And that's what really makes it that 360-degree approach. If you just approach it from, oh, I'm just doing intelligence, then you're never thinking, I'm going to have to present this in a court environment. That little bit of undertone of that court environment makes you produce data at a different level than if I'm just doing intelligence.
And how does this connect to the forensics of everything? I wanna know more about this.
A couple of years ago, when we had 5G come out, I was like, whoa, this is a big tech spike. Like, keep track
Mhm.
of what's been going on. And I thought that tech spike was huge because what they did is they enabled a large scale mesh network that has fiber connectivity to everything. So that's really why we have 5G. It's not just to have better cell phone coverage. Nobody cares about that. It's really not about that. We have that with 4G. It's for the self-driving cars. It's for our autonomous robots that it's for those type of things. Because how crappy would it be if your self-driving car is taking you through the middle of South Dakota and boom, you got nothing. What, you just stop out of nowhere? That's
Yeah.
why it's been such a big push to have such a solid 5G network, especially in the United States, because it's that forensics of everything. It's the integration of all of our IoT environments being able to come together on a set platform of connectivity. And that's the part that nobody ever talked about because they're like, let's get the network. They actually built it right. Let's build up the network and let's build up all the other things that are coming into it. And so now we're seeing the big push out of self driving cars. Think if you're
Yeah.
reading news as you go into larger cities that you're starting to see those push across country. It's like they're not there just for that city. Their goal is to take over transportation.
Yeah.
We'll always have 18-wheeler truck transportation. Goods move throughout the entire
Mhm.
country. But the fact that they could make those autonomous probably sometime in the next 5 years is a game changer. You'll know exactly how long a shipment will take to get from point A to point B because there's no rest required. It's a set speed limit and it comes down to math. That will change some of the waste that logistics has now. And that absolutely should change in the next 5 years. I'd be surprised if it takes longer. And
Yeah.
I would be surprised if you have like if someone has a kid in the next 5 years, I bet you they never learn how to drive.
That wouldn't surprise me.
A lot of people have chosen not to drive, but with the emergence of the self-driving car, we're not going to see people taking that effort to drive anymore.
I live in a medium-sized city. I notice even the generation after me, so few of them drive. I grew up in a
Like,
small
it's an
town, so
empowerment, right? I was there on my birthday getting my license. This is the most important thing I have to do today is
yeah,
this. It meant freedom. It meant
exactly.
opportunity. That's what driving was. And it doesn't mean that anymore. The
Yeah.
internet and the massive amount of connectivity has made it so driving is inconsequential to your ability to connect to other people or
Yeah.
to have other things happen to you.
Mhm. I never thought about it like that.
Think what we're going to do with our garages. You're not going to need a garage because you'll just do timeshare on a self-driving car. You
I
could
was
like
thinking about
1,000 square feet of garage space that now becomes part of your home.
I was thinking about that the other day. Like, I live in a city where the cost of living is ridiculous and the
Mhm.
housing prices are
Yeah.
astronomical. And I was thinking if I had a house and I had a garage, what would I put in it? And I like car didn't even come into
Yeah,
the
look at all the space I'd have.
yeah, I was like,
That's
I get an at-home gym.
really insurance will change the way we actually look at any type of travel. You'll literally be looking at, do I want to fly or do I want to have this car drive me there? How convenient. I can chill out in a car for less than I can fly first class. So I'm going to freaking go in a car and I'm going to watch Netflix and binge while I'm being driven from point to point. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Oh, that would be nice, wouldn't
Yeah.
it?
Think how comfortable you could make it. And then you don't know how much you would save on your car insurance. You wouldn't have
Mm,
to be insured. That's part of the
yeah.
fee.
Definitely feels like we're right on the cusp of
Yeah.
a lot of change for
That's why
sure.
I think we're in that 5-year window. Going back to AI, NVIDIA actually put out an AI that was for self-driving vehicles. And
Oh.
they did it in a different way than what the Waymo companies do because they learn collectively. But the biggest innovation with it is that it never forgets.
Mm.
So every scenario it's ever done, it remembers and it remembers what the response is for that scenario. I cannot say I am that lucky to have never forgotten anything I've learned. I've forgotten more than I probably remember. But when you look at it in a context of driving, it's every maneuver, every accident, everything, they know how to avoid it. It's growing in its education of its language model exponentially every day. One car is training 10 cars and 10 cars are training back. So I'm sure someone out there is doing the math in their head because I cannot do that. But that exponential growth of knowledge about something is as simple as driving versus what other AIs are doing. There's no
Mhm.
reason it wouldn't be essentially the world of perfect drivers.
I'd love that in my city. Everyone here drives like a maniac.
Yeah, they drive crazy about me too. I just got back from going down to Florida, so I had to drive through Atlanta. And those of you in Atlanta, praise to you for living through it every day because holy crap, it's awful. You have to train your entire life based on where you're going to hit Atlanta traffic. And then you have to be ready to like pop on a helmet and go into the speedway because it's the fastest driving I've seen. It's crazy. This is what we're looking at, and that's the forensics of everything. It's the fact that
Mhm.
we're gonna be able to add that portion of our digital fingerprint will be so easily traceable at that point.
Yeah.
You'll know exactly your phone is gonna say, "I was in this car at this time, they repaired," everything like that, and we know where you were for 8 hours.
Yeah.
But now that doesn't happen. All my cars are dumb cars. They're not dumb, like, I don't want them to take it personally if that car's ever listened to me, but I don't have a smart car on purpose
Mhm.
because,
Yeah.
there's no Bluetooth in any of my cars. Like, I
Yeah.
chose dumb cars.
I also have a dumb car.
Yeah,
I want knobs. I
I
don't
do
want
like some of that
touch
technology.
interface.
I wanted that just in case there's some apocalypse in the future, then I still have a vehicle.
I think about that all the time. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
so if we're all like connected to this internet or whatever running these cars, and then all of a sudden it goes down, we
I
can't
know,
go
but
anywhere.
what happened to the cars when AWS kicked the bucket,
I
a couple
didn't
months
even
ago? Because AWS is running a good percentage of the internet. What did that do to some of the self-driving? Are they entirely separate or are they just running a redundancy in AWS? You wonder about that stuff. I even have manual transmission cars because I know how to drive that. I don't
wow,
with it.
dying breed. It's
No.
not a lot of people who can do that anymore.
Now you can't take it to get valet or anything. My son's car, he's in his 20s, is manual transmission because he wanted to do something different and wanted a specific car. And it was a lot cheaper to buy a manual transmission because no one knew how to drive it. But he can't park anywhere. He's always having to self park. I'm like, that's okay. You'll be fine.
Ah, speaking of all of these different ways, yeah, this forensics of everything, I'm so curious. What is the most unexpected source of valuable intelligence that you've encountered?
Oh, there's so many. I'd probably say the most obvious ones, I say a lot of our human factors, the devices that we attach to us. But I am impressed on how impactful your home IoT side can actually impact your digital fingerprint because it does a lot more checking in on if you're existing in it, if you're not existing in it, those
Mm.
type of logs. And you're going to laugh. My big thing that I think has been a neglected redheaded stepchild is that we do not investigate a lot of routers. You don't even think about your router, do you? You're like, it's in the closet, it's fine. I don't ever have to investigate it. But I think that that is impactful. I'm putting out a piece of technology this year and probably in the next couple months here that allows people to investigate their routers. Because that really gives you, so think of that first part of my 360.
Yeah.
That's giving me what is here, what
Yeah.
is part of your existence day to day. It starts with a router. Everyone's, that's crazy talk. But
I get it. There's been times where I'm like, for whatever reason, I have to log into the route
yeah,
and see
it's
what,
rare.
and I look on there and I'm like, what is that? Who is that? I don't recognize the device and I start,
Every person who's
yeah,
visited you, they're like, "I need access to your Wi-Fi," and so they connect
yeah,
to it, and their little ID is left behind. So
yeah.
it creates an interesting little map when you start thinking about routers.
That's so interesting. Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, I can make a
Um,
sticker or something to put on routers that says, "I am the redheaded stepchild," because that's really what it comes to when it comes to digital devices.
right. Yeah. It's interesting because there are so many Internet of Thing, like so many of these devices connecting to everything all the time. I attempted once to have a light bulb that I wanted one of those light bulbs that would just like go, I could shut it off from bed
I don't
and
wanna
then
get
turn it
out.
on.
I'm already in.
And I
Yeah.
wanted it because like in the morning, I wanted it to turn on so it would wake me up because I was having trouble.
Oh, the sun, like, simulate
Yeah,
sun. I did a lot
exactly.
like that.
So I got a light bulb and then I plug it in and then I'm like, "Oh my god, I have to go on this app. I gotta
I have
program
to
this
grant, like, a
flippin' light bulb."
gazillion permissions to it, like, why does this light bulb care about
I
my address book? I don't
It
understand.
freaked me out. I was like, "I don't like this." And I
Mm.
took the light bulb back. I was like, "It's
No,
not
I know
worth."
now. Yeah, you have
Yeah.
to resign that says, "Am I going to exist within this Internet of Things environment or am I not?" And a lot of it is convenience based. I
Mhm.
actually purchased the property I live on. I moved in the pandemic and I purchased it for the fact that I could simulate an entire city in my geographic property because it's large enough that I can build a scaled scope of a city on my property. So I
Oh,
can see how IoT is going to change and impact and interact through a variety of different sensors. It says this is what it'll be like building in this portion of a grid went out. I can simulate some of that. And yes, that made me a super big nerd, but that's why I picked it. And I just had to have fiber connection. It still goes down to a router. It still gets pushed out through a router. This is my hobby
yes.
and bake cookies. But yes, this is a hobby.
So you've written and taught many courses. You're an accomplished instructor and you've even started certain certifications.
Yep.
Is that true?
Mhm.
So, first of all, what is your favorite course to teach or your favorite subject to teach?
Mobility, definitely,
Yeah.
smartphone forensics, and probably my favorite course, I've actually merged my smartphone forensics class into an IoT class. I
Mm.
genuinely love IoT. I think it's fascinating, and I think it's our closest our glimpse into science fiction. I do love science fiction as
Mm.
a general rule. Watching the Jetsons when I was a kid, I'm like, "That's cool. I absolutely want that." I do a mobile and IoT forensics course, and I have to rewrite the course and update it every time I teach it because it changes so much. Normally, I have to do it every time. I don't wanna miss something.
And it's constantly evolving. I feel like every day there's a new thing that you can hook up to something else. And I feel
It's crazy.
nothing has made me feel older than watching technology like keep. I'm like, wow. Like when you were talking about the AOL discs, I was like,
Yeah,
I remember that. Like
remember that. There you go.
I was there.
And now I have my kids talking. All my 3 kids are in their 20s, and I remember my middle kid telling my younger kid, "I remember the day that YouTube came into existence." And that was, like, his, like, big moment in technology. I'm like, "It's freaking YouTube. What? That's it?" Remember the internet coming into existence. I'm like, there's a different scope of what people can say is their big tech moment on their timeline. That was
It's so
theirs.
different.
Mhm.
Well, I'm so curious. You've been training investigators on these tactics and these forensic skills. And we're just talking about how much things have evolved. I'm not aware of how long you've been teaching certain things. Do you notice a difference between people you trained at the beginning of your teaching career versus the people that you're training now? Are the skill sets different? Or the attitudes
I
different?
think the generational difference is different. And I say that because I'm a Gen Xer, and I've taught boomers, and I've taught millennials and Gen Zers. Alphas are not getting taught in this yet because they're still too young.
Yeah.
But the Gen Xers, they're like, okay, they just confront it, they take it, and it's like their generation. I'm just going to deal with it. The boomers are a little more skeptical about it. Do I really have to do this? Are you really going to see that? I'm like, you absolutely are. Here's a good case example. Millennials and Zers actually full on adopt it. And I say that difference because they never knew life without the internet. That connected generation from millennial through Z, it's their Zers, I guess I'm not Zers. They always had a smartphone. You don't have to deal with a flip phone or like the original Nokia feature phone that didn't do very much but play Snake. They never had that. And so their adoption of seeing how the technology shifts, it's become just who they are. They don't have the hesitation with it. They totally get it. They're like, oh, yeah, my friend has this. I can see why that would be valuable. They don't want to drive. They're like, yeah, I totally want a self driving car. It's not a loss of freedom to them. It's just more level of technology convenience that adds to their digital fingerprint. So I think they adopt the tactics better. I don't always think that they pay attention to the privacy aspects as much as the Xers and the boomers do. Yeah, Xers and boomers are like, no, thank you. It's the same issue with your light bulb. No, I don't think so. I want to go. Does my light bulb really care about me that much? It doesn't care about you at all, but it does want to have your data because it's got to be able to make the next light bulb even better.
Mhm.
And so I think that part has changed. But yeah, younger generations, they adopt the techniques faster.
That
So
makes sense.
they've had it all their lives. They
Yeah.
did not see an AOL disk. They're back into vinyl. My current computer, which I've had for 2 years, it doesn't have a CD drive anymore or DVD drive.
Yeah.
I have to find my external one. I have an
Yeah.
external 3.5-inch floppy drive too that I very rarely have to use, but I can't not have it because what would happen if I didn't get rid of floppy disk? But they have no idea. They're like, isn't that just the save icon? I'm like, no, that's a floppy disk.
That always makes me laugh.
Difference in gaming, difference in generations, all of that stuff definitely contributes in.
Yeah. When you were talking about AI and, like, how we have had AI for a long time, I think about gaming because,
Mhm.
like, so much in gaming is you've got your AI characters.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. My
Yeah.
middle son, he's in college. Actually, all my kids are in college. They could all finish, though, in case they ever watch this. They could all finish and graduate. That would be fantastic. But my middle son is currently on a scholarship for esports. And he
Oh,
read scholarship as an esports athlete. And it was
wow.
so okay, but
Yeah.
he did a research paper with me and helped me figure out what the protocols are for gaming forensics because he spends 8
Oh.
hours a day in a virtual world existing. It's a huge thing. It's all part of that forensics of everything. Gaming is absolutely a new frontier in your investigations, whether it's the social media aspects of Twitch or looking at YouTube from a social media aspect as opposed to it's just another video search engine. It's this is an entire community that is just growing gangbusters.
Okay, let's rewind back to the training and certifications. I'm so curious about these certifications. What inspired you to create these certifications? What gaps were you seeing that needed to be filled?
There was a mobility gap for a very long time. My company was the first company that put out a mobile forensic tool. We bought out another tool that was PDA for PDAs as well. We merged them together and did development together for a while, but nobody had a process. It started again with that process. So they didn't have a methodology behind it. Designing training, designing technology, and all of that process goes into where certification really goes to. People always talk about different vendors putting out certifications. There's lots of them out there. My philosophy was the certification is not only and your ability to work through data, but it's understanding those fundamental principles. I've never taught a class that is just simply click here, click over here. It's never been like that. It's been understand when I click here and I'm looking at this app data, I'm looking at it in three different formats. It's SQLite data, it's JSON data, it's a plist file. What do those files mean? How are they broken out? What am I supposed to see after it? Those fundamental knowledge things that go into the types of certifications I work on are what make you able to go to court, able to
Mhm.
understand it. What I believe is more than that lay person, if you want to try to do an expert classification on there. And I think it applies to any type of digital investigator, whether you're a digital forensic person or you're an OSINT person, you still have to get to that deep level that says, oh, if I'm going to pull data off of Facebook, I better understand how Facebook works. How is it
Mhm.
tracking a person? What's associated with a profile? I always find it ironic when someone says, oh, I do professional social media investigations. I said, oh, okay, tell me what your social media accounts are. And they're like, I don't have any. And I'm like, how can you investigate something? How can you understand gaming investigations if you've never logged in and looked at Twitch before? That is
Mhm.
a social hub for gamers. If you've
Mhm.
never been on there, then you're just poking a stick on it and being like, "Oh, it's fine." But it doesn't work that way. You have to exist in these, whether you exist as a sock puppet or as yourself. I think it's an important way to have an understanding.
Kirby was also saying that when I was talking to her yesterday, we were talking about the importance of getting on the platform, and especially because the privacy limitations that you have if you're not actually on the platform. Nowadays, it's a little bit harder to get that information. It's all walled off.
They're definitely creating far more walls and sandboxes for it. And I love that. I can't tell you what it's like to be on OnlyFans if
Mhm.
I have never been on OnlyFans. How can I
Yeah.
tell you to investigate it? That is a period of a couple months that says this is what it's actually to be in there. It's not a couple of days. I think that's where people get a little bit lackadaisical that says, oh, I'm just going to be on there for 2 days. I'll learn everything I need to. No, you've got to make this part of your cycle.
Mhm.
Existing somewhere is not taking a quick vacation for 48 hours. It's, hey, I'm watching this every week. I'm seeing who's trending up. How do the trends work? How do I get someone interested in my page? You have to take that time and devote the resource into it for at least 2 months for me. I do
Mhm.
60 days in a platform that I understand how it works to be part of that community. But I'm guessing, and I'm going to make poor assumptions if I do it for 2 days. So
Mhm. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Even with platforms like Facebook, you have your personal connections, and then you have every business on the planet in there as well, using it in a different way. And then you have a lot of groups and organizing happening on there. You've got the marketplace. It really feels like a whole city of stuff.
and it's interesting. So when I do research now, let's say I'm researching a piece of technology, or even if I wanted to research something personally, like I want to build, and this is going to mess up everyone's phones now. I want to build a gazebo I can go and hang out in, and I wanted to have a fire pit. I will do an initial Google search on that using Chrome. From there, I make sure I talk about it for at least a minute to 2 minutes with my phone present, and then the next step of my research is I wait until the social media adjusts all its ads. And now it's going to give me all these ads about different gazebos and fire pit options that I can install. And it actually goes through a long refining process. So I really get the top of the pile when I go look at my social media. I've used it for gift giving, I've used it for house things, I've used it for just business research too. It's
Yeah.
fascinating to see how the advertising algorithms will work to refine data down. And that's actually a good part of our investigations as well, because one of the largest pieces of our digital fingerprint that's growing is our advertising ID. I want to know what happens with it. Someone starts talking about, hey, I want to start stalking someone. I'm like, do they get ads that all of a sudden adjust them and tell them how they can start tracing people? Makes you wonder, right? But
It
everyone's gonna get a
does.
gazebo ad now. They're gonna replay the spurt, and it's gonna be like, "Gazebo, gazebo."
Yeah. I'm gonna send you an email later when I get an
When
ad
you
for
get your gazebo
it.
ad. Yeah, absolutely. Because
And
it's
it is.
totally gonna be like,
100% will happen. It's freaky. It's pretty freaky.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're always listening. Your phones are always listening, so it's
Yeah.
definitely an important aspect in how you're functioning. Just like Alexa always listens on that front, your phone is listening a hell of a lot more than she is.
Yeah, it's wild. I've gone into doctor's appointments. My doctor will be like, "Hold on, I just had to put my phone on airplane mode." They were telling me that after an appointment with a patient, their phone would start sending them ads about what the patient was talking about, and I'm like, Oh, no.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
not good.
No, it's that mobile advertising ID, and it's interesting. However, I leave my phone on in my doctor's appointments because it's interesting to see the alternative options that they'll propose versus what my
Mm.
doctor did. Usually it's a bunch of hoo-ha. Yeah,
Yeah.
that doesn't matter. It's interesting to see just how those algorithms work, and they're only gonna get smarter. That's when AI is gonna start punching in there, and we're gonna be at Minority Report way earlier than it said in its time frame. So I think
Yeah.
it's like 2057 was like the year for Minority Report, and obviously we'd be way early then.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's funny. It really sounds like you've gamed the system of,
No,
like
oh yeah, it totally works. Again, email me when you hit a gazebo. That's that
Mm.
advertising ID evolving into a smarter language model. Say, new car insurance are this close to each other on the grid language model. So we should definitely see those things related.
Wild.
It's crazy. It will be very interesting. It's a lot easier to shop. It's so much easier.
Yeah. I wanna go back to the training investigators,
Yeah.
or even, I guess, in your work, people maybe that you're not even training. I'm curious to know, what is a mistake that you see investigators making a lot?
I think the biggest mistakes is that they don't stop first and decide what's going to be part of that investigation. And so they miss things. It's setting that expectation is actually really a valuable step. Am I going to do OSINT? Am I going to have to do digital forensics? That works for any side of an investigator. You have to be prepared and say, what are my points going to be if I have to go to that level? And not doing that, you're going to miss things if you don't plan it out a little bit. I see a lot of investigators dabbling their toes in something because it's new. Ooh, I just saw this new AI come out, so let me try it without researching how it works. How does it maintain the quality of the data? Does it share it? Does it have privacy rules? What are the terms of use? All of those things have to be done before. But so many people are like, yeah, I'll just jump in. Let me use Temu and see how that goes. And I bought a bunch of things on there. I did a lot of research with different Chinese devices, so I need to buy them from somewhere. But I
Mhm.
also make sure I silo up and do a breakup of those parts of what are my digital fingerprints so that it's sandboxed. Those
Mm.
things I don't think get reviewed. One of the most valuable things I think you can read before you start your investigation of what are the terms of use of the technology you're going to be using. Because that's going to tell you, are they going to share your data?
When you were talking about the technology piece of it and reading these terms of service, it reminds me of parts of my conversation with Kirby where we were talking about, like, there's all of these tools out there and you start using them, and then all of a sudden, like, the person who built it isn't doing it anymore, or the company shuts down or whatever, and then you're, like, in the lurch and you're starting over again. And we were talking about the book that there's a gentleman who writes a book about OSINT techniques every year. He puts out an edition. And I was talking to our director of customer success, and he used to do investigative journalism. And he was saying that, like, every year this guy puts out this book. And in the past, it used to be a lot about, oh, use this tool, use this tool. These
And
guys are doing a good job. Yeah, he doesn't do it anymore. He says you got to build your own.
you do, you have to build a process. Digital forensics is a multi tool approach built in the foundations of how you're supposed to do it. Every investigation you do, you should use two tools to validate one another. And I don't think that that was necessarily the habit in OSINT, but I think
Mm,
it's going to have to be. The problem with building your own tools, I do like it, but then you have to take it through the steps the same as a commercial tool would. So if I want to
mm,
build a tool that's to do this, then after I build the tool, I need to have my code commented out. I need to have a set test plan that every release is going to go through the same as a commercial tool would that goes through my validation steps. And then I have to be
right.
willing to publish them. And I think that's part of the problem that happens on the open source side is that it doesn't have a test plan set and it doesn't do the same test plan every time. They look at it as, oh,
Mhm.
I only updated this little piece here, so I only have to test this little piece here. But you actually have to go and test how that feature interacted and affected everything else in the tool. It's why you pay for commercial tools. It costs a lot because
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff that goes into them. It's not just, oh, I just made this the other day and I'm totally going to release it. It's a process.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like, with the vibe coding
Yeah.
becoming more popular as well, like, I can imagine there's lots of people being like, "I can build this."
Yes. And then build it, test it, and maintain it.
Different story.
Totally different process. It's like everyone believes they can have a puppy and they have to keep the puppy going, train the puppy things, do all these other things. And
Yeah.
sometimes people give up because they did a lot of work.
Yeah, no, it's so fair.
Right?
What is the best piece of advice you've been given about investigations?
Don't start an investigation with an answer in mind. I think the
Mhm.
best advice that I have been given. And I think it's because when you very self-taught, so you go off the premise of I've read all the Agatha Christie's and I've read all this and it's oh, it's Murder on the Orient Express. I'm looking for a murder. You have to allow the other pieces of data to come in before you form your answer. And so I think that's a good thing I keep in mind because it's interesting that sometimes I'll be like, oh, that must be the answer. And I'm like, but am I sure? You know,
Mm.
was there anything else influencing this to be the answer? And I've taken a lot of cases in that where the other party has, this is the answer. And I'm like, that sounds like it's not an entirely good answer. It seems a little sketchy. Let's go back and look again. And then I find the things that show that wasn't the actual answer. That was just the answer someone set up.
Mhm.
So I think that's the important one to me is don't start it that way. Have an idea of what you're looking for, but I don't start it with, oh, you're guilty, you're innocent, nothing like that. It's like I'm on a journey through your data to see what is going to push me one way or another.
And if you were training a brand new investigator tomorrow, what would you insist that they master first?
I don't know if it's an ability to master. It's something I look for in people, though. Creativity. A good investigator, I actually believe, has a natural sense of creativity. It's what makes you like look another direction, or maybe it isn't this, or maybe it's that. That actually comes from creativity. So I encourage, as analytical as we might all be, I make sure I put just as much time into my creative brain as I do my analytical brain. And I think some of that is getting lost. The overabundance of content doesn't necessarily breed creativity. I think that's something that everyone has to exercise. And I ask a question like when I'm interviewing people. So every person I've ever hired at Paraben has been asked the same question. Do you want the question?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you were a kitchen appliance, what appliance would you be and why?
If I was a kitchen appliance, I'm, like, looking at my
I have
kitchen.
kitchen
My
oven.
my first impulse when you said kitchen, I was like, stand mixer.
But why?
I think because I'm very sturdy and reliable and maybe loyal in the sense that I've had my stand mixer for, like, 15 years.
I was 18. I'm with you.
There's very
We
few
have the same
appliances
brain.
that last that long, and so dedicated, and also I like to make people's lives easier. I also love baking, so that was where my head went first, was enabling deliciousness, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
absolutely, but that had to use both sides of your brain.
Mm.
You had
It
to
did.
be analytical. What am I going to be? And then the creative application is really just like, how are all those things? Because you're right. You probably have the same brand of mixer as I do that I've had since I was 18 because it's the only brand that lasts.
Yep.
And it's very reliable. It does
Mhm.
make my life easier. When the snow comes in, I do not have to go buy a loaf of bread. I can make it myself. It's empowering.
Yeah.
And those are the things that go into it, and I've had a variety of answers through the years, and some of them, like, when the guy says, "Hey, I would be a knife because I like to cut things," that's a hard no. No, we're not going to start this journey together. It's gonna be a no. Sorry. I've had others that I'm like, "Okay." So, I am a refrigerator. I contain a lot of different things that can make other things happen. I'm a
Mhm.
contributor into anyone that wants to use those things. And I want to make it better, more interesting, whatever.
I love that. Okay. To close off our conversation, I want to close it with more AI talk because it feels like that's everything that's happening right now is about AI. And so
Like
I'm curious how you see it coming into play in digital forensics, in OSINT, and where is it?
the biggest time saver that anyone will ever have. I will never make a timeline report in Excel again in my career. Like it's an out there, people. Those used to take forever to make. If you've got terabytes and terabytes, it's a monster. So I will never do that again. I believed in this enough that we have an AI platform we released that was specifically trained for digital forensic incident response data.
Oh,
And it took years training it to really understand the MITRE framework, Splunk logs, that text messages are communication. They're not just text. It's
right.
people communicating because there's a difference in how you look at the data.
Right.
And I have been so crazy happy with how it's all turned out through its training mechanisms, how it's been designed and everything else, that I'm like, this is what everyone is going to start doing. I think I've looked at a couple OSINT tools. They're designed similarly. I always start with those terms of use
Yeah.
and their privacy policy. Like I know exactly how our tool can go to court. Like I have all the logging, it's compliant with the rule 702 for evidence. Everything is good. And I designed it that way, or my team designed it that way in the first place because that's how it should be. But the time saver, and then the other thing of it is, and this is more of my advice, apologize. This one phone. I have too many phones on my desk. There's 7 phones here.
Oh my gosh.
It's like a little parade in front of me, and I'm like, crap, because they're all different sock puppets or whatever. Which one did I not turn off? It's been a different one every time. I think the biggest other impact is our ability to think through that interview question, and it comes out in our
Mhm.
prompts. People's prompts, I've seen some really crappy prompts. What did you mean to get out of that? I'm like, and I'm like, okay, no, this isn't going to work. There's a structure for a prompt, and that structure is going to give you your best results. If you structure a prompt poorly, it's going to increase your chance of a hallucination because you asked a weird way of asking this question. That I think is also going to be impactful as we see people refine that skill. So
Mhm.
I have
Mhm.
3 kids in college. If anyone ever watches this that are my kids, graduate every single one of them, despite what career goal they're going after. I said, you have got to learn how to get the art of prompt writing. And it is an art and a science behind it so that you're not wasting your time. You have a supercomputer literally at your fingertips. Don't ask it, how do you feel today? It doesn't care. It's it's like $1,000,000 for everyone who just asked that question. But structure a prompt that is effective and will actually lead you to the next step down the process. AI is not going to replace us, but it
Mhm.
is going to replace the methodology that we have been using with something more effective. I wouldn't it? An average smartphone case, I read 500,000 text messages. It is exhausting and boring. It's so boring, and there's stuff you don't wanna know, and I can sit and be like, "Let me hope I get the right search term for it," or I
Mhm.
can use an AI to do the analytics with me that remembers all 500,000 text messages, which there's no way I can do that, and allows me to have an educated, investigative conversation with it to find the data I'm looking for. It's
Sure.
not
Yeah.
me throwing that ping pong ball and hoping I'm going to get the little ring and win the prize, because that's what searching kind of has done for us. What if they changed their lexicon? I don't know that
Mhm.
they're calling it something entirely different. And
Mhm.
I can't remember it. My human brain cannot remember that quantity of data as a reference point. That's what an AI is for. It's
Mhm.
that ability to remember it all. That's a huge deal. And Julia McCoy said, the AI is the worst today that it is ever going to be.
That's true.
Tomorrow, it just got better. I don't think our regular software has that same evolution. I can tell you by making software my as much as I work on my primary platform and everything else, I can't make it exponentially better every single day. It's an impossibility. That's why we have release cycles and all those things, but I can't make a difference every day, and an AI can.
Mm.
That's the difference.
It's interesting that you highlighted the ability to go through something like text messages exactly because it's a language model. That's exactly what it's trained to do, is to look at language.
And to know the relationship between a friend of mine shared this video. I show it in presentations because Rob was nice enough to share this with me. And he's one of my AI gurus. Every language on the planet has the same structured map. It doesn't matter what it is. If speaking English, or even if we were speaking Klingon, it is possible no one ever has conversations with me in Klingon, but still, they're the exact same pattern. Doesn't
Mhm,
matter. And that's where some of that brilliance is. The remember, and the older I get, it's such a big deal to be able to have something that always remembers. This is a large
mhm.
portion of data. That's hard to remember. It just is. And
Absolutely.
who gets to work just one case at a time? I'm like, now I gotta remember 6 cases and what's their drama. It's why we take notes. Because I'm like, remember again what this one was about? Oh, yeah. For me to have a companion in my investigative team that can, oh, that is the best. Priceless. That's why I think it's why AI is actually cheap too. I think it's because, look, I'm genuinely trying to make it better. Most AI should not be expensive. I really
Mhm.
should. They aren't the original recipe. Like I said, you've downloaded language models. I've downloaded language models.
Yeah.
That's because someone else has done that work over the last 15 years. That's why I don't think you should buy an AI that it's $12,000 million to do this. They're not the OG.
And you don't necessarily I've heard a couple people talk about it and say using the highest mode on one of these platforms to do something like write an essay is
Yeah.
like taking a rocket ship to space. Like, why? Like, you're burning so much rocket fuel to get
Yeah.
across the
So to
street.
do
Like,
this. And right now
yeah,
it's free rocket fuel, but eventually
not free forever.
we're going to be paying for that rocket fuel. There's a reason that a lot of the large AI platforms are trying to bring nuclear power facilities online. It's
Mhm.
expensive to keep this stuff powered, but the
Yeah.
transformative effect it has on the world is the juice is worth the squeeze. What it comes down to.
I'm
And
so grateful for our conversation. Thank you so much for sharing all your insights. I'm eternally grateful and I enjoyed our conversation so much. I hope that we get to talk again because
absolutely.
I feel like I could talk to you all day. Thank you for all you do, the Wonder Woman of forensics.
I know when gazebo comes up because I totally want
Yes,
to go.
I'm gonna email you
I
when
bet
gazebo
you
comes up.
that's the 24 hours.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Amber, you're the best. Thank you
Thank
so much.